Your battery just died. Not the one in your flashlight, the one keeping your kids insulin cold. You've got 48 hours before that vial becomes poison. The backup generator, it's been sitting in your garage for 3 years and the fuel is turned to varnish. Your solar panels, they're feeding a lithium battery bank that's been slowly committing chemical suicide since the day you installed it. And now, in the moment you actually need it, you're learning the most expensive lesson of your life. The survival industry sold you planned obsolescence wrapped in tactical nylon. But here's what they didn't tell you. There are 3 technologies that actually work permanently. They're not illegal, they're just buried. And today, you're gonna learn why a century-old battery chemistry, a material that defies physics, and a communication network built by nobodies could make you completely independent of the system that's designed to keep you dependent. Let's start with the biggest scam in modern preparedness.
Part 1. The Edison battery, the chemistry they want you to forget. Every prepper I've ever met has a battery problem. They don't know it yet, but they do. You've got lead-acid deep cycles in the basement, lithium-ion power banks in the closet, AGM batteries wired to your solar array. You think you're building resilience. You're not. You're building a graveyard of electrochemical time bombs, and the clock is already ticking. Here's what the energy industry doesn't advertise in big bold letters on the packaging. Every single battery chemistry you've been told to stockpile has a built-in death sentence, and it's not accidental, it's profitable. Let's start with lithium-ion because that's what everyone's buying now. Lightweight, high energy density, charges fast, sounds perfect, right? Wrong. Every single time you charge a lithium cell, something called dendrites starts growing inside. These are microscopic metallic crystals. Think of them like thorns made of lithium. They grow from the anode toward the cathode, slowly, invisibly, cycle after cycle. Eventually, they pierce through the separator membrane. When that happens, you get an internal short circuit. The cell heats up, fast. And if you're lucky, it just dies. If you're unlucky, it goes into thermal runaway and turns your battery bank into a magnesium flare you can't put out with water. But even if you avoid the fire, you still got a shelf life problem. Lithium-ion cells degrade just sitting there doing nothing. The electrolyte breaks down, the capacity fades. After 5 years of storage, even if you never used it once, you've lost 20 to 30% of your capacity. After 10 years, you're looking at a brick. Now let's talk about lead acid because that's the old reliable, right? The battery your grandpa used, the one in your car. Proven technology. Yeah, proven to fail. Lead acid batteries work through a chemical reaction between lead plates and sulfuric acid. Every time you discharge the battery, lead sulfate crystals form on the plates. When you recharge, most of those crystals dissolve back into the electrolyte. Most, not all. Over time, the crystals that don't dissolve build up. This is called sulfation. It's permanent. It's cumulative, and it slowly strangles your battery's capacity until one day it just won't hold a charge anymore. You get maybe 300 deep discharge cycles if you're treating it gently, 500 if you're babying it like a newborn and never discharging below 50%. And the kicker? The sulfuric acid is corrosive. It eats the plates. It off-gasses hydrogen. You need ventilation or you're building a bomb. And if you let it freeze, the water in the electrolyte expands and cracks the case. Game over. So what's the answer? Buy more batteries? Keep rotating stock like you're running a warehouse? No. The answer was patented in 1901 by Thomas Edison, and the modern energy industry has spent the last century pretending it doesn't exist. The nickel-iron battery, the Edison cell. And it's not just better, it's categorically different. Here's why this battery is chemically immortal. The electrolyte is potassium hydroxide. It's alkaline. And here's the magic part. It doesn't participate in the chemical reaction. It doesn't get consumed. It doesn't degrade. It just sits there acting as an ionic conductor. The actual reaction happens between nickel hydroxide and iron. When you discharge, the nickel gets reduced and the iron gets oxidized. When you charge, the process reverses. The potassium hydroxide? It just watches. It's a spectator. It doesn't age. This means you can charge and discharge this battery thousands of times without killing it. Edison's original cells from the early 1900s, some of them still work. We're not talking about a marketing claim. We're talking about batteries that have been cycling for over a century and still hold a charge. But it gets better. You can abuse these batteries in ways that would murder any other chemistry. Overcharge it? It just bubbles off the extra energy as hydrogen and oxygen. No fire, no explosion. It vents and forgives you. Completely drain it to 0 volts and leave it that way for months? Lithium would be dead. Lead acid would be sulfated into a paperweight. The nickel-iron cell? You just recharge it. It wakes up. Full capacity. You can freeze it solid,
The potassium hydroxide doesn't expand like water. The case doesn't crack. Thaw it out and it works. You can leave it sitting in a garage for 40 years, come back during the collapse, drain out the old electrolyte, rinse the cells with distilled water, pour in fresh potassium hydroxide, and it returns to near 100% capacity. Your children could inherit this battery. Your grandchildren could use it. This is technology that outlives you. So why the hell isn't this in every off-grid cabin? Why isn't this powering every RV and backup system in America? 2 reasons, and neither of them is performance. Reason 1, weight. Nickel and iron are heavy elements. A nickel and iron battery has about half the energy density of lithium-ion by weight. For the same amount of energy stored, you're looking at 2 to 3 times the weight. If you're building a portable system or you need to carry your power supply, that's a deal breaker. But here's the thing. If you're building a homestead, if you're bugging in, if you're done running, if your battery bank is sitting in a shed attached to solar panels, weight doesn't matter. Longevity does, and nothing outlasts nickel and iron. Reason 2, business model suicide. This is the real reason. A battery that lasts a century is a catastrophe for a company that needs to sell you a new one every 3 to 5 years. Think about it. If you buy a lithium battery bank today for $10,000, in 5 years, you're buying another one. In 10 years, another one. Over 30 years, you've spent $30,000 to $40,000 on batteries. The company loves you. You're a repeat customer. You're generating revenue. But if you buy a nickel and iron battery bank once, and it lasts a century, you're done. You're out of the market. You're no longer a customer. You've solved your problem permanently. And in an economy built on planned obsolescence and subscription models, a permanent solution is a threat. The outdoor industry, the energy storage industry, the entire preparedness market is built on selling you things that break so you buy them again. They don't want you to own solutions. They want you to rent survival. And the Edison battery breaks that model so completely that it's been quietly buried for decades. But here's the good news. You can still get these batteries. Small companies make them, mostly manufacturers in China and some operations in Eastern Europe. They're not marketed to consumers. They're not on the shelves at Home Depot. You won't see them advertised during the Super Bowl. But they exist. You can order them. And they will outlive every other battery in your stockpile by a factor of 10. Now here's the uncomfortable question nobody's asking. If you've got immortal energy storage, if you've got power that lasts a century, what's your next limitation? Food? Water? Sure, but there's something more immediate, something that'll kill you in hours, not days. Temperature. If you can't trap heat, if you can't shield yourself from thermodynamic entropy, all the power in the world won't save you. You'll freeze. And the way you've been taught to stay warm is a lie, designed to keep you bulky, slow, and buying new gear every season.
Part 2, Frozen Smoke, the material that shouldn't exist. The outdoor gear industry has been selling you the same scam for 50 years. They tell you that warmth equals thickness, that insulation means bulk, that if you want to survive winter, you need to look like the Michelin Man wrapped in a sleeping bag. And you believe it because you don't know the actual science. Here's the truth. The enemy isn't cold. Cold is just the absence of heat. The enemy is conduction. Thermal energy wants to move from hot to cold, from your body to the air. That's thermodynamics. You can't negotiate with it, you can't bribe it, but you can cheat it. And the way you cheat it has nothing to do with how puffy your jacket is. Heat moves through materials in 3 ways: conduction, convection, and radiation. Conduction is direct transfer through a solid. Metal is great at this. That's why a steel pot handle gets hot. Convection is heat transfer through moving fluids or gases. That's why wind makes you colder. It's moving the warm air away from your skin. Radiation is heat transfer through electromagnetic waves. That's how the sun warms you, even though space is a vacuum. To stop heat loss, you need to block all 3. Traditional insulation, like down feathers or synthetic fibers, works by trapping air. Air is a terrible conductor. But here's the problem. If the air can move, you get convection. The warm air rises, cold air sinks, and you're losing heat. So you need to trap the air in tiny pockets that prevent movement. That's what down does. That's what fleece does. They create thousands of tiny air pockets. But there's a limit. The pockets can only get so small before the material becomes too dense and heavy. And if the material gets wet, the air pockets fill with water, which is a fantastic conductor. Your insulation collapses. You're now wrapped in a cold, wet blanket that's actively pulling heat out of your body. People die like this. It's called hypothermia, and it kills fast. So the industry's solution is to make the insulation thicker, more loft, more air pockets. That's why winter jackets look like parade floats. But there's a material that solves this problem so elegantly, so completely that it almost feels like cheating physics. And the outdoor industry doesn't use it, because if they did, you'd never buy another jacket. It's called silica aerogel. They call it frozen smoke because it looks like blue fog trapped in a solid. And it is, without exaggeration, the most thermally insulating material on planet Earth. Here's what it is. Silica aerogel is a gel where the liquid component has been replaced with gas through a process called supercritical drying. What you're left with is a nanoporous structure made of silicon dioxide, the same stuff as glass, but instead of being dense, it's 99.8% air. The remaining 0.2% is a delicate lattice of interconnected silicon nanoparticles. Now here's where it gets wild. The pores in this material are measured in nanometers. That's billionths of a meter. To put that in perspective, a human hair is about 70,000 nanometers wide. The pores in aerogel are between 2 and 50 nanometers. That's smaller than the wavelength of visible light. And that creates something called the Hudson effect. Air molecules are about 0.3 nanometers in diameter. When the pores in a material become comparable to the size of the molecules trying to move through them, the gas stops behaving like a gas. The molecules can't flow freely. They collide with the pore walls more often than they collide with each other. This breaks convection. There's no bulk movement of air. Heat can't transfer through convection because the air is physically trapped at the molecular level. On top of that, the solid structure of the aerogel itself is so thin and sparse that conduction is almost non-existent. And because it's mostly air, there's very little mass to conduct heat through. You've essentially deleted thermal conductivity. The result? A material with a thermal conductivity as low as 0.013 watts per meter Kelvin. To compare, fiberglass insulation is around 0.04. Down feathers are around 0.025. Aerogel is half that. And here's the kicker. You can make it thin. A 3mm layer of aerogel insulates as well as 3 centimeters of down. You can compress it, you can fold it, and it doesn't lose performance when wet because it's hydrophobic. Water doesn't stick to it.
Here's the classic demonstration. You take a thin wafer of aerogel, 1 centimeter thick. You put your hand on one side. On the other side, you apply a blowtorch. Over 1,000 degrees Celsius, blue flame. The aerogel glows orange from the heat, but your hand doesn't feel a thing. You could hold an ice cube and it wouldn't melt. You could hold chocolate and it would stay solid. The heat is not transferring. It's being blocked at the nanoscale. This material was developed by NASA for the Mars rovers. They used it to insulate electronics in an environment where temperatures swing from -120 Celsius at night to +20 during the day. It's been used in spacesuits. It's been used in deep sea exploration. It works permanently. It doesn't degrade, it doesn't compress and lose loft like down, it doesn't absorb water. It just sits there, defying thermodynamics forever. So why aren't all our jackets made of this? Why isn't every sleeping bag lined with aerogel? Why isn't this the standard for cold weather gear? Cost and business model. Manufacturing aerogel requires a supercritical drying process. You take a gel, usually made from a silica precursor, and you heat it under high pressure until the liquid inside reaches a supercritical state where the distinction between liquid and gas disappears. Then you slowly vent the pressure, and the liquid evaporates without collapsing the structure. It's finicky, it's energy intensive, and it requires industrial equipment. It's expensive to do at scale. But that's not the real reason. The real reason is that if you sold a jacket that was 3 millimeters thick, weighed 4 ounces, and kept you warm at -40 degrees, and that jacket lasted 20 years without losing performance, you would destroy the winter apparel market. Nobody would buy a new coat. Nobody would upgrade. You'd sell one jacket per customer and then never see them again. The entire business model of seasonal fashion and planned obsolescence collapses. But here's the thing. Aerogel insulation exists. You can buy it. There are companies integrating it into apparel. Oros Apparel makes jackets with aerogel insulation. They're not cheap. A jacket runs $200 to $400, but compare that to a high-end down parka that costs the same and lasts 5 years before the down starts clumping and losing loft. The aerogel jacket will outlast it by a decade. And in a collapse scenario, having gear that doesn't fail is worth more than gold. You can also buy raw aerogel insulation. Pyrogel and Cryogel are brand names. It comes in flexible blankets. You can line your shelter with it. You can wrap pipes. You can insulate a sleeping bag. A 5mm layer gives you the insulation of 5 centimeters of foam. You've just made your bug-out shelter 10 times warmer without adding bulk. The science is sound. The material is proven. It's just been kept niche because widespread adoption would kill too many revenue streams. You've got immortal power. You've got thermodynamic insulation that makes you untouchable by cold. You're physically safe. But physical safety is only half the equation. In a grid-down collapse, information is survival. And if you're relying on cell towers, satellites, or any infrastructure controlled by centralized entities, you're just waiting for someone to flip a switch and silence you. You need to communicate. And you need to do it in a way that can't be shut down, can't be monitored, and doesn't rely on anyone's permission. That's where the third technology comes in, and it's the most dangerous one for the system.
Part 3. The shadow grid. Mesh-tastic and the network nobody controls. Most preppers think they've got communication handled. They buy a Baofeng handheld radio, $30 on Amazon, feels tactical, comes in camo. They program in some GMRS or ham frequencies, and they think they're ready. They're not. They're carrying a liability disguised as a tool. Here's the problem with traditional two-way radios. They're designed for point-to-point communication. You transmit, I receive, that's it. If there's a mountain between us, if there's a building in the way, if you're more than a few miles out, we can't talk. The signal doesn't bend, it doesn't route around obstacles, you're limited by line of sight and terrain. And in a collapse, terrain is everything. But the bigger problem? Every time you key up that microphone, you're broadcasting on a specific frequency. Anyone with a receiver can hear you. Anyone with a directional antenna and basic triangulation skills can figure out where you are. You're not communicating, you're advertising your location. You're ringing the dinner bell for anyone who's hungry, desperate, or hostile. And you can't encrypt analog FM voice transmissions easily. If you're on amateur radio bands, encryption is actually illegal, so every word you say is public. The military solved this decades ago with frequency hopping and encrypted digital comms, but that requires expensive radios, coordinated networks, and infrastructure. You don't have that. So what do? The answer isn't more power, it's better topology, and that's where Mesh-tastic changes everything. Mesh-tastic isn't a radio in the traditional sense. It's a decentralized, encrypted, text-based communication network that runs on the LoRa protocol, long range. And it's built on a principle that makes it nearly impossible to kill. Every device on the network is both a client and a repeater. There's no central server, there's no single point of failure. It's a mesh. Here's how it works. Let's say I want to send you a message. You're 15 miles away through hilly terrain. Direct line of sight is impossible. With a traditional radio, we're done. Can't communicate. But with Mesh-tastic, my device doesn't just try to reach you directly. It sends the message to every nearby device on the network. Let's say there's a node a mile away on your neighbor's house. My message hops to that device. That device sees another node 3 miles away on a hilltop. It hops again, then to another node near a river, then to one on the edge of town, then finally to you. The network routes the message through the path of least resistance, automatically, intelligently. And if one node goes offline, the network heals itself. It finds another route. The more devices you add, the stronger the network becomes. It's anti-fragile. You can't kill it by taking out a central tower because there is no central tower. Every node is the tower.
The protocol is called LoRa, long range. It's a modulation technique that trades data speed for distance. You're not streaming video, you're sending text messages, GPS coordinates, and sensor data. A typical LoRa device transmitting at 25 milliwatts can reach 5 to 10 miles in open terrain. From a hilltop or a tall building, 30 miles. I've seen reports of line-of-sight transmissions reaching over 100 miles. And in a dense urban mesh with dozens of nodes, you can send messages across an entire city without relying on a single piece of corporate infrastructure. The power consumption is absurdly low. A Mesh-tastic device running on a small lithium battery and a 5-watt solar panel can stay online indefinitely. You're looking at milliwatts of power draw during transmission and microwatts in sleep mode. A single 18650 battery can power a node for weeks. And here's the critical part. It's encrypted. The messages are protected with AES 128 encryption by default. You can configure private channels with your own encryption keys.
No metadata gets leaked to telecom companies, no triangulation by casual eavesdroppers. You're operating in the spectrum, but you're invisible unless someone knows your specific channel and key. This is peer-to-peer communication using physics that predates governments. Radio waves don't care about borders. They don't care about laws. They propagate according to the inverse square law and the properties of the ionosphere. You can't ban physics. So why isn't this technology everywhere? Why haven't you heard about it on the news? Why isn't Verizon selling mesh-tastic phones? Because decentralized communication is a nightmare for centralized control. Telecom companies make money by owning the infrastructure and renting you access. Monthly fees, service contracts, data caps. If everyone switched to mesh-tastic, if communities built their own local mesh networks, the entire telecom business model collapses. You're not a customer anymore. You're the infrastructure. Governments don't like it either, because a communication network they can't shut down is a network they can't control. They can't censor it. They can't tap it easily. They can't shut off a region during a protest or a disaster. The network is owned by nobody and everybody. It's the digital equivalent of guerrilla warfare. And that's exactly why it's been kept niche. The hardware exists, the software is open source, the protocol is documented. But there's no marketing budget, no Super Bowl ads, no carrier stores pushing it. It exists in the hobbyist community, among amateur radio operators, and in the prepper underground. And that's where it's most valuable. You can buy mesh-tastic devices right now. Hardware brands like Heltec, TTGo, LilyGo, and Rack Wireless make LoRa development boards for $30 to $70. You flash them with the mesh-tastic firmware, pair them to your phone via Bluetooth, and you're on the network. Done. No subscription, no monthly fee, no terms of service. You own the device, you own the network. But here's the catch. One device is useless. It's just a radio screaming into the void. 2 devices? You've got point-to-point communication with encryption and better range than a Baofeng. 5 devices in a neighborhood? You've got a mesh. 10 devices across a town? You've got a resilient communication web. 50 devices in a region? You've got an unkillable network that can coordinate, warn, and organize without a single corporation involved. The collapse won't be survived by lone wolves. It'll be survived by networks, by communities that figured out how to communicate when the cell towers went dark. And mesh-tastic is how you build that network before you need it. Now, let me tell you why this is the most dangerous item on this list. Not because it's harmful, but because it makes you ungovernable. A person with power, warmth, and communication that doesn't depend on the system is a person the system can't control.
The pattern, why good technology gets buried. Let's step back and look at what we've just covered. 3 technologies, a battery that lasts a century, insulation that defeats thermodynamics with nanoscale precision, and a communication network that can't be shut down. And I'm willing to bet that before today, you'd never heard of any of these in a mainstream survival context. That's not an accident. That's a pattern. The modern economy is not built on solving problems. It's built on managing problems, on selling you temporary relief that requires renewal. Every product is engineered with an expiration date, not because it has to be, but because a customer who solves their problem permanently is a customer you lose forever. The nickel-iron battery is the perfect example. It was commercially available for decades. Edison marketed it for electric vehicles in the 1910s and 1920s. It powered mining equipment, railway signals, and backup systems. It worked flawlessly. Then lithium-ion came along. Lighter, higher energy density, sexier specs on paper, and it dies in 5 years. Car manufacturers didn't choose lithium because it was better for the consumer. They chose it because it was better for business. A battery that dies means a customer who comes back. Aerogel has been around since the 1930s. It was invented by Samuel Kistler. NASA has used it since the 90s. We've sent it to Mars. We've used it in space chutes and deep-sea submersibles. The science is proven. The material works. But your winter coat is still stuffed with down feathers that clump when wet and lose loft after 5 years. Why? Because a jacket that lasts 20 years without degrading kills the apparel industry's revenue model. They need you to buy a new coat every few seasons. Aerogel prevents that.
Meshtastic is open source software running on cheap commodity hardware. The LoRa protocol is public, the encryption is strong, the range is extraordinary. But you've never seen a billboard for it. You've never seen it in a carrier store, because a communication network that doesn't require monthly fees, that doesn't generate service contracts, that doesn't harvest your data for resale is worthless to telecom corporations. They want you renting a connection, not owning one. This is the game. Every time a technology is too good, too permanent, too liberating, it gets quietly excluded from the mainstream. Not banned, not illegal, just kept niche, kept obscure, hidden behind industrial jargon or hobbyist communities. So when the average person walks into a store to buy survival gear, they're only shown the products that will need replacing, the products that keep them dependent, the products that generate recurring revenue. And the industry doesn't just bury the good tech, they actively market the inferior alternatives. They spend billions on advertising lithium batteries. They sponsor influencers to review the latest puffy jackets. They partner with telecom giants to push smartphones and data plans. The message is clear: buy this, upgrade next year, stay in the cycle. But the science doesn't care about marketing budgets. Physics doesn't care about quarterly earnings. And the people who understand the science, who dig past the advertising, who ask the uncomfortable questions, they're the ones who build real resilience.
The final word. You can't buy independence, you build it. So here's what it comes down to. You've got 3 pieces of the puzzle. Immortal energy storage that outlives you. Insulation that blocks heat loss at the nanoscale. A communication grid that nobody controls. These aren't just tools. They're exits. They're ways out of the dependency cycle that the modern economy is built on. True preparedness isn't about hoarding what they sell you at the store. It's about understanding the science they don't advertise. It's about knowing why a technology works, what makes it robust, and why the market has conveniently forgotten it exists. The nickel-iron battery doesn't just store power, it makes you a power station. Aerogel doesn't just keep you warm, it makes you thermodynamically untouchable. Meshtastic doesn't give you a radio, it makes you a node in a network that can't be killed. And none of this is illegal, none of it is restricted. You can buy all of it right now. You just have to know it exists. The system's not hiding it behind walls, it's hiding it behind silence, behind obscurity, behind the noise of 1,000 inferior products screaming for your attention. Now I want to hear from you. What other technologies belong on this blacklist? What gear have you found that solves a problem so well it's almost suspicious it's not mainstream? Drop it in the comments, because the more we share, the harder we are to control. Stay curious, stay independent. Physics doesn't take bribes.